It's crazy. It's gone by so fast. It feels
Yes,
like.
yes, yes. It has gone fast. And so let's work with the end and work its way back. So I still owe you a video plus tonight plus the booking availability for at least 60 days out from our last engagement. That I do owe you in our transition between when we now meet now and when we meet during our mentoring session. Additionally, are there any questions or additional resources at this particular time that you need support in or that I need to upload to the shared drive?
I don't, none that I can think of. I haven't, I've clicked on the YouTube links to some of the extra bonuses and they
Mm-hmm.
work. I haven't really watched through all of them. A couple of them were a little bit
Okay.
longer, but yeah, I think all the files and um, documents were updated. I can't think of anything that was pending. All the stuff you sent last week, the Google templates and client surveys were very so helpful. I really appreciate you sharing those extra resources with me. So I can't think of
Awesome.
anything right now, Brandy.
Okay. Okay, awesome. And then after this call, of course, you'll have 60 days to take a moment and reflect. And then if there's additional things, then that's what we can make it a part of our last mentoring, our last 60-minute mentoring session.
Okay. And you sent me that link last week, I believe. I just haven't scheduled it yet.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'll go back and check that, but I'm pretty sure you sent that in one of your emails last week.
Yes, you're going to get a very comprehensive email
Okay.
that includes everything so it doesn't make you have to go back through and just put my email address in and sort through. So that is my goal, to create you a more comprehensive email so you don't have to go to different source points.
Okay, awesome.
Gotcha. So let's go through our last four. Let's go through our last four topics for this session, which is to talk about your organization. How do you stay organized? How do you stay accessible where it's easy for you and your client to get to a share point where you can get resources. Corporate filings and tax hints. We'll talk about how to actually go for your corporate filings and what does that look like and what's the time frame and what's the cost. We'll talk about automation. I have 6 different topics that I want to talk to you about in the automation process to get you started. And then the acknowledgement in your communications with your clients. So the first one is to get organized. So talk to me about, does the current process of a Google Shared Drive or a SharePoint within Microsoft Office, the Outlook version, what works best for you in your organizational style?
Yeah, so something that I've used a lot the past 2.5 years through my job at Habitat is Dropbox. So
Okay.
and especially because it has a desktop application, and honestly, it's so synchronized. I use a MacBook, but it's so synchronized that when I click on my Finder, it just looks like a file on my computer, but I know
Sure.
it's being backed up on the Dropbox. I'm not sure if you use that one.
Yes,
So
I'm familiar with it. Yes.
yeah, and then of course it has the web-based application too. So if you don't have desktop or you're sharing it with somebody to upload, they can access it just through a www.dropbox.com
Right.
as well. So I really like that one just because it's the one I've used the most and I'm most familiar with. Obviously, I've used Google Drive a good bit since high school and college. And
Sure.
I find that documents, in terms of like its layout on the web, I like the structure of Dropbox better, how everything just kind of fits that like file organization, overarching view.
Sure,
It
sure.
seems easier to navigate, but that's also a really good resource. And one that I tried to use for this new client, Brandy, that's basically given me the exact opposite experience of my first client, which is great. That's like the perfect, contrast here. But yeah, I had set up a Google Drive to use with them, and it was like really complicated, which maybe is a red flag, but they didn't want to set up a Google Drive. So I would be curious to know how you handle pushback, or like if you just have kind of a menu and let them choose, like in their initial survey, like, hey, what type do you want to use, even though I want to use this kind. That's just an experience that literally has happened since our last call last week. And I haven't really used Microsoft OneNote at all, so I don't have much experience with that one.
Okay. So how do I get pushback? Or how do I navigate through that? I have to use up to a variation of 2 that works best for me first, as well as with the client is easy to navigate. You have to assess your client in regards to their comfort level of technology. Prime example, I currently have a client that is an athlete. So he is more hands-on implementation of his program. I've created a share. He's never done any type of organization of his files outside of what's on his desktop, of his laptop. So it's a new process with him using the Google Share Drive. However, what I found out in the process is that he has up to 10 contracts or independent contractors that help him implement his services. They are the ones that can navigate through the Google Share Drive. So the majority kind of wins in this particular scenario. You have to, especially on short-term projects, you have to work well what's best for you, but also flexible of what they can do. And at bare minimum, what they can do is their comfort zone, which is emailing back and forth with attachments. Right. In the education process, you have to express to them that the end goal, and I think I need to be more of an advocate of this, is long-term succession planning and operational procedures, of that when you're trying to build the solid foundation of a long-sustaining nonprofit organization, you have to develop systems that are easy and accessible and adaptable to the broader network of people that you'll be working with. And so a variable of 2 different ways is great. Anything 3 or over is going to get kind of convoluted, but you have to explain to them is that, hey, me and or you may not be here for the long run. So what is, and you have to paint this scenario. Have you ever walked into a new position and your predecessor's instructions or lack thereof was to go through all of the old emails? And you can probably appreciate how cumbersome and the large learning curve it is in order to sift through those. What if there was an easy process that if you voluntarily or involuntarily transitioned out to this position, what would be your gift or legacy to the person that succeeds you? When you phrase it like this, what it does to the professional is it allows them to think about, if this is a career for them, all of the different positions that they come in, and they've had a huge learning curve of learning their predecessors, like historical information of what they gather throughout years, and you're just baptized by fire. And so within nonprofits, it's really good to help your client understand the need to get organized and then use your engagement as an example of what high-level organization looks like. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it definitely does. And my role in this job the past 2.5 years has given me such appreciation for it. So I think like it's like the first thing that I want to like shake into somebody is like, listen, if you just do it, not right, but if you do like a decent job of it from the beginning, it makes rapid fire response or like quick turnaround times just like actually achievable without going crazy. Everything's there in a row and you can focus on whatever other fire comes up or earthquake, that you're not expecting. You've got
Right.
bandwidth for that. Yeah. So I was trying to communicate that, Brandy, with this new client, the newer client, and sharing that list of resources that I needed or was requesting and had prioritized them based on your suggestion, like in terms of like, hey, these are the ones I need by this Friday. These are the ones that I'll need to follow, break it down for them. So it's not overwhelming. And it was really interesting. I've gotten a couple of them now, but something that came up with the strategic plan was the pushback that I got was that, well, our strategic plan is an internal document and one that we're not comfortable sharing with you at this point. If you come across a grant where that's a requirement, we'll address it then. I was just kind of like, okay, I'm not sure how to like take this one further. First of all, it seems kind of sketchy, like you don't actually have one if you're not willing to share it with me. And two, if we're truly like going to be partners in crime in this and like achieve the greatest potential, like you said, you would think that you would want the person helping you try to like promote your organization and business to know the good, bad, and the ugly. So that's, like I said, this one's gonna, I just have like, I already know, but this one's just gonna be lots of like little fun learning curves and how to, I'm not exactly sure how to deal with that. If that's just like, that's their decision and I need to kind of give like a disclosure. Well, like, I can only do so much if you're not willing to be totally transparent, but to say that in a nice way, I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting.
So so that's a great testimony as to why there's such validity in a checklist up front.
Right.
Because it allows you to categorize your clients. And what that does is that allows you and it gives you the bandwidth of what you can and cannot do. Number one, you already know if there's funding that requires a strategic plan, there's a caution in proceeding forward because at worst case scenario, it does not exist. And the man hours that it would require to produce it just for a grant that's probably attached to a weak program objective that would not probably be able to implement it if awarded. So you already know and they would ask you possibly to stay on to manage it because they have no idea how to meet the agreement because they had no idea how they got there because there was no path. Right. So that goes into a category of you mentally already knowing what it is that you're getting into. The response to that, which is a way for you to soften the blow with your client, is to ask them, what can I do to help support you in completing the strategic plan? Trust me, they understand, and you're not the first person who's asked for it. It's probably come from a higher level than you. They understand the value of it, but they can't clear anything off their calendar, both in the daily task as well as the board of directors meeting, to make it a priority. Right. Additionally, there's no one on the board that really knows how to take the leadership in doing that. So what that does is that creates a potential product that you can offer to them when it's appropriate. There's really no way around getting them to do or understanding more than they already do. All you can do is help support them in getting one when they get comfortable in asking for the support. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just kind of like, and it might be more at the end of this contract that I'm currently working on for just the research portion, but when the timing's right, just kind of like remembering to weave that in. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like this one is like, because within the first initial or second or third conversation with the development director, kind of the next level up from the woman that I'd originally been speaking to, we got all on this like whole thing about the golf tournaments and the walk trot 5K thing, and I was like, that's like different from a grant. That's sponsorship packets and benefits that we're talking about, and like I have experience working on those and would love to tell you more, but that's a little bit outside, like that's a lot outside of the scope of what we're doing for like grant research. So let's stay focused on that and we can revisit that. So yeah, I don't know, I guess within like the first 10 days, I already have a longer list of like what else they need. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's been very interesting so far. But I can't thank you enough, and it's making me so grateful that I obviously used your scope of service template to create the original contract, like proposal and then contract with them, but made it very clear that all this would entail was like the hours of research that they had paid for grant purposes. And so to have that like paper trail to fall back on that they signed, and then as well the what was it we were talking about last week? I forget the term that you used, but kind of the working document that goes back and forth, like a recap of kind of goals and activities. Was it the communication? It wasn't the communication.
Communication strategy or your project task.
Yeah. I think it was like project tasks. You had like a day 1, 2, 3, or 4. Well, I like just this past week, Thursday or Friday, I like changed it. She had asked for kind of a weekly briefing or recap at the end of each week. So I did like week 1, 2, 3, 4, and I summarized, just at a high level what we had talked about, what we had agreed on, what I was going to do, and then a little gentle reminder of what I still needed from them, like was pending on. So that's that just feels really good to have that to refer back instead of trying to, like you said, if something does come up later down the road, which could be potential with any client, but especially with what I've experienced already with this one, you're not trying to dig through email strings and trails and remember what week. That kind of summarizes all of it, which is really nice. So I don't know. So I'm so glad that I've like had this time with you and like been able to start implementing those with this particular client, especially. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Yes. That's what it's all about is protecting your time.
Right.
And while delivering the best services and being very clear in what you can deliver, as well as assessing your client's need. That was probably really the best examples of client A, client B, and client C. And as you were talking, I was thinking like, I really need to do a webinar called The 3 Types of Clients. And as you were talking, there's always a level A, B, and C in your client. And remember when we talked about client avatar and what does each one of those look like? And the first one is the perfect one. And it is sage and wise with wisdom, and they understand nonprofits. I'm probably going to name that the GOAT because they are wise, they're slow, but they're steady. The second one I was thinking was the turtle. They're slow to process. They understand it. They understand the raise, but they're going to be very methodical in getting there, and they're going to be slow to draw. Then number 3 is the squirrel. You come in there for one thing, and then the moment that something happens or you say something, they're darting to the next conversation or the next project, and they're not finishing what it is that you said, because they're more like visionaries and they can see something far out, but they don't understand exactly what it takes to, yes, to lay out the steps. So yes, you're starting to understand your client base based on your workplace experience, as well as your clients that are coming in. So it's going to start to gel together to understand like the nuances of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, like I was kind of frustrating or, just like, oh, dun dun, it's not the last client. It's really good. I know it's good for me to have these
Yes.
happen, and especially like in kind of little baby steps, and especially while I'm going through a course like this with an expert like you, to be like, this is gonna happen.
Exactly.
But yeah, protecting yourself, and I guess just with somebody like this, my wanting to end up pleasing them ultimately, or like at least providing something useful and helpful. Like I'm hopeful that at the end of it they'll be like impressed or satisfied with what they get back. I don't know. I guess this like kind of squirrel or
Yeah.
squirrel hybrid, I haven't quite figured them out yet, but has me like a little nervous, like with somebody that's so like, well, sponsorships and strategic plans or this, like at the end of the contract, are they going to be like, well, none of all, I don't know. It'll just be interesting to see how that goes, but we'll find out.
The best way that I'm able to provide, I guess, documentation in regards to did you meet the goals that your client expected you to do, is in the scope of services. I directly, oh wait, I was trying to make sure that you had the FEIN number. It looks like you do. No, that's in the 501c3, sorry. The best way that I do is I go back into the scope of services, and all of the things that I said that I was going to deliver, I put the result afterwards. So at this time, this coaching session, this is what I delivered, or this is how I delivered, because it may be a task that takes you 4 to 6 weeks in order to complete. But you use your scope of services as your summary report to show this is what I proposed and this is what I delivered. When you use that also as a benchmark in delivering services, every time you get off the phone, you need to make sure, or video chat, to make sure that you have delivered and or did everything that you said that you were going to propose. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It's kind of like the checklist for yourself. You
Yes.
send them the client resources and you have your own.
Yes.
Breaking it down, yeah. No, that definitely makes sense.
Awesome. I just added another resource that I'm going to put in the file for you. Here we go. Okay. So we are going to talk about the 3 different levels in regards to how to get your business incorporated. So currently you're a sole proprietor, you haven't filed for any type of filings. You're just within your clients, they're writing you a personal check. They're writing a check to your government name, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that is.
Gotcha.
I've taken 0 action in officializing anything, and that was like a big task for myself, or like question topic that I tried to get more information about at the conference. It seemed kind of everybody has their own their own way of doing it and niche. So yeah, I'm definitely ready to talk more about this or hear what your recommendations are.
Gotcha. No problem. Let's start with the hard part. So, typically, let me go back to our lesson plan. So, as a sole proprietor or a self-employed person, the biggest thing that you need to understand is, number one, is that you are taxed anywhere from 30 to 43%, depending on where you are. Exactly. Welcome to welcome to the other side. It's not as green as everyone thought that it was. And so with self-employment tax, and I will transparently say, with the recent this year tax laws, I'm not as fluent as what I am going to become because it's new. Right. All I can reference is the prior. And this is the first year in 2018 that you can't do a lot of stuff that you have done traditionally. Traditionally, you have been able to claim a loss up to $7,000 over 3 years as a new business. What that does is that drops your total income or your total revenue, which gives you benefits of up to $21,000 over 3 years, which allowed you to itemize or Schedule C your business. Right. How that's transitioning now, I have a meeting with my CPA. I just met with her last week, and I'm meeting with her to kind of understand how, as a self-employed person, how does that benefit and what's the cons? What I do recommend is that you get connected with a CPA for this year. So as you're going into 2018, what's moving into now is for self-employment is that you're going to have to pay on a quarterly basis. So every 90 days plus 30 days, you'll have to pay your taxes based on the income that you've made. Now, when you are on the contractor side, you probably have signed in your documents a W-9 and probably provided your driver's license. Is that correct? Great. The reason for that is that because you have gross over that employer has given you over $700 in a calendar year. Anything over $700 sends a flag that you will have to complete a W-9, and then your tax return or your W-2 is now a 1099. So at the end of the year, when you're filing with your full-time job, a W-2, you'll also be submitting a 1099. How that washes out at the end of 2018, a lot of people are still trying to navigate what that looks like. Who is guaranteed to know, and by law, is a CPA. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I met with someone right when I got back from the conference who I think in my head, they were a CPA, but they aren't like technically a CPA. They help people at H&R Block.
Right.
But she basically, like, we grabbed a coffee. I'd like heard all of you guys at the conference say, you gotta have a bestie, like go get nails or like all these things. I was like, this woman would be perfect, but comes to find out she's not like an actual CPA. And she was, she disclosed that. So it kind of put me back, I guess, to square one in terms of, I know a lot of those individuals have pretty like steep several $100 charges and costs, and like at what, it's something I know is so important, and goodness knows I need help navigating it because I am don't know what to do. But how would you recommend strategy wise for someone who is just kind of breaking ground with income? Just go ahead and bite the bullet and write that into your cost and pay up. Okay.
You answered the question perfectly.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. The sooner the better. I'm glad I made that transition in, was it 2013? I started with a CPA. Best business decision that I made as far as financially. The second one was QuickBooks, or some type of accounting software that gets exported to your accountant. My accountant charges about $700 annually to file. And the hard part about it is that initially it did not make on paper business sense. Long term, absolutely. Within 3 years, you'll see the benefit of really having a CPA because it establishes your financial practices for your business. Yes, cost effective wise, it is, it's natural to go with someone that is a tax professional, but a true tax professional is a CPA that is going to manage your assets over time. And they're also beneficial in a personal capacity as well. So there's dual benefits of having a CPA versus someone that has an acumen of filing taxes. Does that make sense?
No, it definitely does.
Yeah.
Definitely does.
Yes, and I'm happy to share my CPA with you. She is a breath of fresh air. And the great thing about it is that she has resources to CPAs that manage nonprofit audits as well. She can help support you in the audit review, but she does have an inventory of other accounting resources that help not only you, but your clients if you need to refer them to that. Because that's what I do with my nonprofit clients is that we talk about money. So how are you managing it? And it's great to start with an Excel spreadsheet. It's great that you're filing the taxes with a tax professional, but the pinnacle point is the CPA. And sometimes over time it grows when your budget can allow that.
Sure.
Yes. So let's talk about the 3 levels of what that looks like in the state of Georgia. So it's tiered. It's 3 levels. It's federal, state, and local. The one that people miss out the most is the local. Everybody wants their piece of the pie. So in the federal level, it's a very, very easy process of going to and calling or downloading the SS4. Let me pull up the SS4 for you. I'm sure I have it in my document.
Mm-hmm.
What the SS4 is, yep, there it is. What the SS4 are you familiar with what the FEIN number is or the Federal Employee Identification Number?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Do you know how to go about getting the FEIN number?
I've not done that.
Gotcha. So there's a document in your shared drive it's called How to Obtain a FEIN Number. Even though this is for nonprofit, you can do this, the same instructions for your for-profit. So whatever your business name is going to be, you'll tell them what it is. You'll call this number. It does take a moment to maneuver through the telephone version, But if you do the telephone version, they do it right there on the spot. If you do the electronic version, it takes a couple of days. This is just the easier version. Within less than 30 minutes, this can be done. So they ask you a couple of simple questions. What is, you let them know that it's a new business, what your mailing address is, your fiscal year. You can use any date for your fiscal year. The most common of the 3 dates are January 1 to December 31st, July 1st to June 30th, or the federal calendar of October 1 to September 30th. So, but you can choose any day. They're going to ask you what your number of employees are. Typically tell them 1. Of course, you can grow more, but 1 is what's realistic. You give them your social security number and your nature of business. It's recommended that you keep it general for your nature of business, because as you evolve as a business owner, you'll probably stay 80% on the path, and then as you're discovering new things, it may shift a little bit. But business consulting or nonprofit business consulting is your generality of your professional services that you provide. Does that make sense?
It does. Can I ask you one more question about where it would say name of your business rather than nonprofit at the beginning? We got into it a little bit, I guess, last week, but with the travel writing, grant writing, consultant business, do you recommend trying to keep those two separate at this point, or putting them under one, do you know what I'm saying? One over
Absolutely.
under for simplicity and like sanity purposes, or is it better at this point? Because it's something that I definitely want to develop. I think I explained I've been putting all my time and trying to stay focused on the grant nonprofit right now, but that's definitely something that I want to build out and still pursue. Yeah.
It's a great question. So that's the whole part about micro enterprises, is that you're starting on a vision and it's new. And so you don't know what works until you get to working in it, and then it works or it doesn't work. And that's why within number 6, I say leave it general with nonprofit and business consulting, because it'll fall up underneath both. Because you're not saying, oh, I want to start a genetics company, something random. So it falls within the same scope. Transparently, within the next 60 days, I'll be starting another company, because now is the appropriate time that I'm branching off my business consulting and my personal consulting, as well as my my group consulting. And so because they're 2 separate entities. Why? Because Serve University is eventually going to transition into a nonprofit university. And so because my vision, now I can really see my vision, my initial company is called Ray of Light Management. So any and everything for profit went under Ray of Light Management. Anything nonprofit went up underneath the nonprofit. When you start to get clarity on your business and know your lane, is when you can branch off. The great thing about it is you can create as many enterprises as you want. And there's no, you just have to dissolve it administratively, but you can create as many as you want to. I would start with one, nonprofit and business consulting.
Okay. And
does that make sense?
Yeah, and for the beginning or initial phases, the travel writing can kind of funnel in through that until it becomes like a sure on its own path track thing, or not dissolves, like you said. Yeah,
yes.
Thank you.
No problem. No problem. I want to make sure all of these resources as we are talking is in the shared drive for you.
So you kind of recommend approaching these in this order, Brandy: federal, state, then local, or just what, knock them all out as soon as you?
Absolutely. You want to keep it in chronological order, so to speak, which gives you it gives you the levels. And additionally, in order to fill out certain documentation, it has to fall within that order. And I'll show you in just a second. So I showed you the paper version of how to get an FEIN number. Or I'm sorry, I showed you the telephone way, the quickest way, and I put in the SS4 in there as well. So after you get your FEIN number, that's what you need in order to file your Secretary of State information. So Secretary of State of Georgia. So you will go to the corporations page of your state. And so there's a couple of things that you need to do at the state level. All states are different, but the first is you will need to search your name to make sure that your name is not already taken. So whatever your business name is, you'll go into the business search. So we'll use mine as an example. So when you go into the business search, you want to check to see if your business name is taken. If it is, you'll see if they're registered or if they're compliant. So say, for instance, what I do is a quick reference check to make sure that the clients that I'm working with are legitimate clients. I go straight to the Georgia Corporations page to make sure that they're there and they're active and they're compliant. When you go into the Secretary of State, you'll need to get a name reservation. They've changed this since the election. What is it? You'll get a name. Okay, here it is. You'll get a couple of things that you'll need to do. You'll do a name reservation, which that is to check to see, is your name available? This is $25 with your name reservation. Let me go ahead and I'm going to save that in the shared drive. Every state is different, but this is Georgia's.
Okay.
Oopsie. I'm going to stop this share for just a second.
Only doing this in the state in which you're filing, correct?
Correct.
Not the clients in other states.
No. But that is a great conversation that you should have with your CPA, because if you are in the prime example, the good thing is that you're based in Atlanta and you're doing services in Atlanta, so you'll pay state of Georgia taxes. But say, for instance, that you have to fly to your client that may be in Florida, so to speak, and you have to stay there for about a month or two in order to do work or what have you. There is something called a foreign entity. So depending on if you are making money in another state, you have to pay taxes in that state. So just take prime example for an athlete that has 80 games in a season. And that athlete, as you can tell, I'm an avid Cavs fan, so we're in the playoffs, so that's why I'm using this example. And so as an athlete, every city and state that they play an away game in, they have to pay taxes because they've generated money in that state. Does
Wow.
that make sense?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Welcome to entrepreneurship. They
Yeah.
neglect to tell you this when you go into the field, like, oh, wait, where
Yeah.
am I? This is why a CPA is so crucial, because a CPA will look to say, have you filed a foreign entity? We've got to pay taxes in XYZ state. Just like if when I was working for the Center for Civil and Human Rights, because they were doing fundraising in different cities and states, they also had to file a foreign entity in that state to get licensing in order to raise money in that state. So just know when you're crossing states, what you can and cannot do. Florida does not have any income tax, but only your CPA is going to know what you can and cannot do business-wise as far as taxes are in that state. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah. Welcome.
I'm hearing the message, the CPA message is loud and clear.
Yeah, I mean, it's work. It is a hard business expense to accept. And I have 2 businesses that I have to file for, and I'm like, shiver me timbers. And so, yeah, it is an expense. Okay, so the first is the name reservation. The second is your LLC. They don't make this user friendly. No. They give you templates. I'm trying to find, oh, wait, here we go. Let me show you this because it's in transmittal fee. Your filing fees. So as you can see, there's a list of filing fees. Your name reservation is $25. Your...
It must be trying to pull it up right now.
Is it? Okay.
I'm still seeing the
Gotcha.
list right now, but that's all right. You can keep going.
It's okay. It flips between when you pull up.
Oh, I see. Okay, there we go.
So, and I'm going to move all of these to the shared drive. So as you can see, this is like the laundry list of expenses that would occur if you're doing business in the state of Georgia. So here's your $25 name registration. Your articles of incorporation, LLC, is $100. Those are the only expenses that you have. All of this gets into high weeds, but those are your expenses. So your name reservation, and you'll pull down something called a transmittal form, LLC. So when you click on the transmittal form, LLC, they're gonna ask you all the information that you already know. Your LLC, I'll show you what articles of incorporation looks like in just a second. Your contact information. So they ask for the 3 documents. Your transmittal form, that's this form. Okay. Your articles of incorporation, and your filing fee. When you do this online, all you'll do is swipe and there it is. So this form is very, very important. They ask for your name reservation number. So of course, when you pay your $25, they'll give you a name reservation number. You put that on your name on your transmittal form. Then you send this form back to the same people with $100. Does that make sense?
Yeah, can you switch over? I'm still on the corporate division filing fee list.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay.
And this is a transmittal form. Yep, I got it now.
Yes, this is a transmittal form. So again, you'll spend $25 and get your name reserved. And so it'll come back in probably less than 48 hours. they'll tell you, yes, the name is available, but you'll do your search to make sure that it is available. So that's just a money that they just take. $25. They'll give you a control number or a number that's the number that you put here.
Okay.
Okay. Then what name did you put in to get that number? That's section 1. Section 2, 3, and 4 and 5 is self-explanatory, as well as 6. Additionally, with the transmittal form, which this is your money as well as your articles of incorporation. I'm going to pull that up. Yes. Okay. This is for-profit and nonprofit general template of articles of incorporation. You're basically, and I'm going to send you the business one because I just noticed this is the 501c3.
Okay.
I have to change what that code and that wording looks like. All you're doing is putting in your information, your mailing address, and what you will or will not do. It is a very simple template. This is the nonprofit one. Let me show you. So many windows open.
You're good.
They have an articles of, yep, here it is. So this is the template that the state gives you. And all you have to do, and I'll put it in the share drive, all you have to do is literally copy and paste their articles of incorporation right here.
Okay.
So you have Article 1, you are the organizer. And I will send you a template of what this looks like, but it's very short and simple. It's only 2 pages. It looks very similar to the one for nonprofit. It basically states who you are, what you do, where you serve, and a little bit of the legal jargon that goes into articles of incorporation, but it's very, very minimum, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So the state process, so the first process is your federal. You get your FEIN number. Then you take that FEIN number, and that is what is the state's going to verify as your business identity. Your FEIN number is your social security number to your business.
Okay.
At the state level, you'll have your transmittal form, your fee, and your articles of incorporation. Lastly is your local registration. So what city and or county do you live in Georgia?
I live in Milledgeville, Georgia, which is Baldwin County.
Okay.
Baldwin.
Gotcha. Okay. So there should be doing business in Milledgeville. They used to call it business license. Now they call it occupancy tax. There we go.
I think my screen is, let's see, is showing
Okay.
here.
Gotcha. So I went to your city and I am searching city occupation tax. Oh gosh. Let's go here. You said it's Baldwin County?
That's right. Yeah, Baldwin County.
Let's see what comes up. Okay. So your city doesn't charge it, but your county does. Of course, that doesn't have a link. That would be too
Way
easy.
too easy, right? I think I know from some other people that have applied. I think it's one of those things you go to the courthouse, you go to a certain room. I don't know.
No, that's not it. All right. So,
But it's like, I mean, it's like a 25, right? Or something. It's not generally, or it just depend where you are.
City of Atlanta is $125. I wouldn't expect any other business to be anything over that.
Right.
Um, this is a building permit. This is not it. Building permit is not it. And they may be an organization or a municipality that doesn't have it online. Business services. Let's see.
Yeah, that's very possible.
It says applications can be obtained from Code Enforcement Office, but it doesn't give you. I'm going to show you where I'm looking because this is a first, but this is definitely a learning lesson because it just may not be online. This is the business services for Baldwin County. So again, based on your city or municipality or even the county, there is a licensing that comes in 3 different levels. So because in your community as a home-based business, you have to be registered as a home-based business because it all rolls into your personal taxes. In order to prove that you have a business, it needs to be registered, and so it's like a cipher. For this particular one, this says in order to get an occupational tax to contact Code Enforcement Office.
Okay. That's fine. I'll follow it up from there. I'm not honestly too surprised that it's not easy to find online based on dealing with some of the other government entities. So.
That is a first for me. Normally I could just roll into someone's
right
county or city. Yeah, all they have is code enforcement, but not how to get an occupational tax. Wow. Okay. But now you know the process of, it's not online. Now you know the process of the 3 levels. FEIN number from the federal, you take that to the state. At the state, you have 3 different things to do at the state. The fee is $100 for the transmittal fee. The $25 is for the name reservation, which comes first before the transmittal fee, as well as your articles of incorporation. And then your county/city occupational license, which in this fact it is Baldwin County. And so you'll reach out to them and ask them what is the filing fee. That definitely is under $125.
Right. Can I ask a couple follow-up questions real quick on this section?
Absolutely.
I feel comfortable you having gone through the steps so thoroughly. This is all something that can be done prior or should be done prior to meeting with said CPA friend that I will make and meet hopefully sooner rather than later. Like you recommend just going ahead and getting all this like on your own as soon as possible.
I would definitely start the ball rolling in this space, but at the same time, number one, doing research to understand the benefits of having an LLC. And then additionally having those conversations, because you want to maximize the time with the CPA and ask the questions that you really want to ask, because you know what the end result is going to be. They're going to get you fiscally responsible, all of that other stuff. But you want to know from the, excuse me, from the CPA, how they're going to be able to itemize your deductions as well as track your finances of business expenses and income as it's going on the quarterly basis of when you need to file your taxes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, you brought up sort of my second question, I think, in your answer, which was the whole LLC, sole proprietor, C Corp. I kind of walked away from the conference just being like, whoa, what do I do? Which one? Where to go? And I'm not expecting you to tell me that. It just seems like people had really strong opinions about which one they've stayed in and why, or like switched back and forth to, which is great. I'm kind of so new, I feel like, and trying to gather information and know all the benefits. But the forms that you listed, especially the second one at the state level, the transmittal information form for the LLC, is that done regardless of which way you're going to go, or only LLC? Does that make sense?
Great question. So when you file, number one, always know if you file with the government wrong, you can amend it. So it's not like life or death, and they're going to be like, we're going to fine you $1 million. So just always know, make a mistake. It's a mistake. You're human. So let's take that fear away. Secondly, there's only three ways that you can file. Well, 4, but you're not a franchise. LLC, LP, and then an INC, or the profit way. I've been always recommended to file the LLC, but I understand why people have strong reasonings for the LP.
Okay.
Your CPA and a tax accountant is going to be your best recommenders in regards to what you should do. Now, when you start with a CPA, if you have someone in your network that you can reach out that's a tax accountant, they'll be able to go with you to explain in detail the difference between the two. I can just share with you from my experiences that I have an LLC, and as a single person in my business, and I don't have any employees. I don't plan to have any full-time employees for quite some time, just because of the enormous administrative responsibility that takes. LLC is best for me. And so you want to talk to because everybody's situation is different. The people that's going to give you the legal and the transparent information for you to be empowered to make the best decision is your CPA, as well as a tax accountant. Mm-hmm. So it just transparently, in my journey, I have a CPA. This year I'm transitioning to a tax accountant, and it's scary because it does come. There's such an investment in that. But I do recommend that you get connected and get on the mailing list of Pro Bono Partnership Atlanta. Pro Bono Partnership Atlanta has a lot of free webinars of lawyers that talk about that stuff all day. In addition to the Georgia Center for Nonprofits, often has online workshops that talk more strategically to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And that, I mean,
Mhm.
based on these forms that you have pulled up right there, the transmittal form for one versus the other, that this is a decision that needs to be made before I get to this point of the state filing. Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
that was kind of
More
my
than likely, more than likely, I would say 90% you're going to do an LLC.
policy. Okay.
Yeah. You're going to do an LLC. And hey, if 3 years down the road you decide, hey, I'm going to dissolve the LLC and start an LP, there's no problem in that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, based on the three main things that you just said about being, sole employee, not having people working for you or under you, and yeah, sounds like a lot of similarities for the foreseeable future while I get my head on
Yeah.
straight. So thank you. No,
You're welcome.
this definitely helps. So
Yeah, we're romanticized in coming into a nonprofit, and this is already done and has been done. So all we do is have a calendar reminder that somewhere in operations remembers to renew it on an annual basis. But this is the basic business of starting that gets swept up underneath the rug. This Secretary of State website also has like how to get started in business in Georgia, which is a really great website or tool on here.
okay.
I don't know where it is though. I think
I just type that in though. Probably Google Secretary of State Georgia how to start.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to say no, that wasn't it. Oh wait, there it is. It is not. How to start a business in Georgia is a tool on here.
There.
Since the election, they've kind of changed. There it is. Oh, look at that.
Everything you just said.
Everything.
Yeah.
Here's all your forms over here. There it is.
Oh, perfect.
That's something new. Okay. I'm going to highlight that and make sure that I incorporate that in your email.
Thank you.
Yes.
Perfect. No, this all sounds really good and makes it like you said, a little bit less intimidating. Love the action steps. That's what I'm all about, breaking stuff down into chunks.
Yes.
Going back to CPA, because that seems as urgent as we continue this conversation, and with long-term sustainability and maybe not going to reap the benefits initially while it hurts to pay that up front, but I can definitely see and appreciate what it will do. And I don't know, I'm just seeing the parallel between the conversation that we had at the beginning of the call with like talking about organization with a client you're working on and wanting them to have stuff set up straight. So like should be doing that in our own practices as well, right? Preaching or walking the talk, so to speak. Yes. But for the CPA, just because I've never dealt with that person in this capacity before, somebody obviously who's official and like certified and legal and all those obvious qualifications, but what would be like maybe your top two other things to try to look for as a kind of interview? Because I'm not thinking of somebody off the top of my head or like the uncle or family member in this sphere, somebody that's easy to communicate with and kind of similar or personality. I mean, what in your experience, what's been really important to jive with that person on?
I would say I was referred to Kim because I had at that particular time, and I don't even know. She probably still is. She was hired as the bookkeeper for a celebrity client that has a nonprofit here that I used to work for. So that's how I got referred to her, because I knew the financial integrity of that organization, and she and I, because I was a grant writer at that time for that organization, we talked and we were on the same page. Additionally, Kim is so sweet. There's been a couple of years that I have been late to filing on different benchmarks, and Kim has never forgotten to remind me when I'm getting close to the time, and when I've needed an extension, she has filed it for me. Wow. Like, I'm calling you a couple of weeks, but that's the worst case scenario. I'm saying that to say is that it takes a particular type of person that cares about their client and understands that their client is busy and overwhelmed. It's easy payment processing. I can share documents through her with confidentiality because she has a portal. So she has minimum questions after I send her the stuff, and somehow she spits it back and it's just like what I needed it. That's awesome. So those are the qualities of looking for a CPA, is communication, as well as their previous clients, and literally asking who their references are and call those references. Like, they're going to give you references, call them, and I would definitely recommend interviewing them, as well as interviewing their clients to see what their experience has been with them.
Okay, perfect. No, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. No problem. No problem. So let's jump into high-level automation. But before we get into automation, I'm going to jump down to thank you, because it is the easiest to cover right now. Because we're going to go kind of 30,000 foot view of what automation looks like before we conclude for the evening. Okay. Within thank you, I mean, that's pretty much self-explanatory, but there's 4 different ways that you can acknowledge your client. Number 1 is an automated process. Depending on what they do that requires you to acknowledge them. So say, for instance, payment processing. So I'll show you an example. I'm going to take this off of pause for a second. I'm going to show you an example of what you can do when you receive a payment from your client. Do you send them any type of acknowledgement?
Currently, for the most recent client, because I structured it differently and I actually required a deposit to get started because I hadn't worked with them previously. Like, the first client, that was there was just, history there with that organization and the people in that organization. So it was a little bit structured differently. But I guess my follow-up for their payment, for their deposit, was to acknowledge that I had received it and could thus begin work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Not really like a very warm, fuzzy acknowledgement, like, thanks for paying me. It wasn't anything like that.
Gotcha. When you are transitioning into automation, the hard lifting is creating the content that goes into the automation machine. Now, I think we talked about that last week. The 6 different processes of automation that will be your best ways to use automation is, number 1, email. Like, when someone emails you, what's the automated message in your email response that they should have? Welcome to my site. Click here to download your freebie. or to schedule your appointment with me. So
Right.
what is your automated response to your client? You've probably seen that a million times with any email that you send to me. There's an automation there. Secondly, your automation in your website. Like, what are the things that you want automated in your website? So if you have a particular, like we talked about how you may conduct a 1-hour video about Charity Navigator and the benefits of that. So how easy is it for that person to download the video, download a curriculum if you put together with it, and make a payment? Typically, that's 3 different buttons. But there are different software that makes it easy where it's 1 button. So what does those are the 3 different components that go into automation. But what is your product that you're selling? What are the tools that go with it, video or download? And then how do they pay? That leads me into merchant services. For your website, what type of merchant services do you plan on using? Is it PayPal, Stripe, Shopify? What's a best plug-in tool for you?
PayPal is what I already have set up, sort of. We talked about that last week with the personal versus business PayPal account. So that's on my list to clean up and look into. But yeah, that's just the one that I have set up right now, and that would be, I think, easiest to use based on my experience with it. I've heard a lot and done a lot with Stripe, on the other end, but I haven't set it up or messed with it on the back end yet. But something that's probably worth looking into as well.
Yes. So it just depends on whichever you feel most comfortable with. PayPal is kind of the commonality of those merchant services. Just understand 1 or 2 things are going to happen. Number 1, you're either A, going to have to build that processing charge into your services, or B, push that processing fee back onto your client. Typically, if it's a larger volume, they'll do a check. But if it's a smaller volume, they have to understand that a 4% is going to be added on to their bill if they choose PayPal. Okay. Because they don't have the convenient services of wire transfer for no cost, or if you have Bank of America or Chase, they have something new now called Zelle. That is another way where there's no processing fee or either end. It just depends on what is most beneficial to you and what that matches what's most accessible to the client. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does. I actually do have Bank of America personally that I use, so that's probably something worth looking into.
Very easy to use. All you have to do is give your client the email, and they can make that transfer if they bank. And you ask them in the onboarding process when they sign on the contract, as you see in the scope of services, you're asking them, or your invoice, you're asking them, tell me about your invoicing process. Is it a 30, 60-day net? Is it online processing? Once you receive payment, and I'll need to send you a receipt of this. Let's see, you need the payment received email. And so this is just an example. I created this on Canva. I sent it to my client. It was very easy. I told them what their payment was for, what was the balance possibly, as well as how to get in contact with me or any free tutorials, just to acknowledge in some type of vivid color that I received their payment. Mm-hmm. Again, when I'm shifting onto another platform, all I have to do is copy and paste this content and it's done. Because what you want to test out the free version first, or maximize a product that you're currently paying for. as opposed to paying for something new and then it doesn't work for you, or you've expired the free trial and now you're paying for something and you don't even know how it works. Does that make sense?
It
Don't
does.
you hate that when you sign up for a free trial and you're like, yes, it's free. And then by the time you figure it out or get around to it, like you're in the paid version, you're like, I got to ride this out. And then it just.
Yeah. Brandy, just real quick, since you brought up Bank of America, and you can just give it to me like on a 1 to 10 scale, but important at this point of priority wise of setting up business account for the grant consulting business separate from personal account. Where would you rank that with the CPA filings and everything? Pretty high up, or?
Yeah, your CPA is going to ask for that. Like your CPA is going to usher you into the business side of it. And a part of that is that that's the number one thing that they're going to ask is, okay, now this was a personal expense, but I need to, the intent of going to a CPA is for you to file your Schedule C. The only way that you can file your Schedule C is with a business banking account. And the great thing is that a lot of these platforms, especially QuickBooks, imports your bank statements into QuickBooks. And as business financial practices for for small businesses, you've got to have a business account to export, because if just everything goes south and you get audited, the one thing that people get audited is because they're mixing their business and their personal expenses together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah. It wasn't like specifically stated earlier when we were talking about all of it, so I wanted to go ahead and bring it up and make sure. I figured that was what it was. So, okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. And so outside of merchant services, we talked about project management and finding a tool that works best for you. You've already identified a tool. The most generic tool is Excel. I'll show you just an example of a task calendar. No, wait. I'll show an example if you do it on Excel. But again, what you put in your scope of services is what your deliverables are going to be. So you want to make sure that you're maintaining that over a weekly basis, and that is your guiding project management tool. If you decide to do, let's see, task calendar. If you decide to do anything outside of the scope of services, that's great. So this is just an example, if I could show you real quickly, of an Excel version. Let me make sure that you're seeing what I'm seeing. This is an example of a high-level Excel spreadsheet that I created for a client to help them kind of navigate what we were doing on a monthly basis and deliverables, to make sure that we were all transparent and clear on what my tasks were and what I've asked them to do and whether they did it or not. Mm-hmm. And so these codes are just me being a grant writer and being able to sort it.
I still can't quite see it yet, Brandy.
You can't?
I'm still seeing your Gmail right
now. Uh-oh.
There we go.
Really?
Yeah, I can see it now.
Oh, sorry.
I just switched. Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Cool. So this is an example of how you can do it if you're not into a software. You found a software, if it works for you, great. But on a low level of just Excel spreadsheet, this is something that I created for a client, which allows me to, number one, sort the task. But number two, these are the things that I had promised in the scope of services. Each one of these high levels is the scope of services that I promised when we signed the contract. Each one of the task is up underneath it is what we mutually decided is what we are going to tackle in our engagement. Mm-hmm. So that's why the orientation is very important to determine, okay, this is what I'm proposing in these high level. This is what I'm proposing. What are the tasks that need to be completed in order for me to meet what I told you in the scope of services that I was going to achieve for you? Then each week or each engagement, I list what it is that you did or you didn't do. This is an outdated version because we switched to Google Docs, so you can't see everything that's in here. But if they didn't do it, it's in progress. So when we go through the summary conversation and they said, oh yeah, well, I thought we were supposed to do a strategic plan. Okay, this is what happened of why it got achieved or why it didn't get achieved in our engagement. Because you can only do what you can do, but if the client does not produce, you have documentation in regards to showing them when and where it wasn't achieved. And then the tools and the supportive things that either A, you provided and they didn't take advantage of, or B, that you can provide possibly at a later time or an amended contract. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's kind of crazy how much I don't know, it just comes back to like almost because all of this, especially with the grant writing, it's such a back and forth process. So it's like anything with like teaching or being in a class, like you're only going to get as much out of it as you put into, as you put in and dive in. But how you say that and then track your client with that is like this, the scope of services thing and the deliverables. Like I really like this a lot.
Awesome. I'll send you. I'm making a note to send that to you too. As well as bookings, what way does your client, let me back up and ask you, who's your your hosting? Do you go through Wix or Squarespace or?
Oh, for my website. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's Squarespace right now. And so far, just to be transparent, I haven't booked a client through my website. If you pull it up right now, what you can do, it's kind of a coverall site under construction.
Sure.
I wanted to go ahead and get something up because I did, have business cards printed and wanted to go ahead and secure this domain, but I haven't brought it up to the level, my vision in my head for my website. I kind of wanted to go through this course and really soak it all in and then put up, more hardy material than just throw something up to begin with.
Sure. And that's the whole part about a website, because you have to be crystal clear. Number one, it should not have over 5 pages. Unless it's redirecting you to something else that you are sending them to. Why? Because the average person spends between 5 and 8 seconds on your website. So they need to quickly identify what it is that you're doing, where we're going, the whole 9 yards. Just as an example, like my whole courses and home study that's what we're building and going to a completely different website. So it takes off 2 of my pages, but I had to put it somewhere. And so my automated stuff is going to a completely different website. So it flows more clearly. But you want to make sure that you have somewhere on your website that someone can get in contact with you. And so I want to show you kind of the automation process of what this is. My back end, you can pay for different schedulers. You can pay for Calendarly is one. You can leverage, if you have Microsoft Office, you can leverage that. But mine is through Microsoft Office, which is general. But when they book a session, it goes to my bookings page, as you can see at Microsoft, which this is my Microsoft Outlook. Depending on what you have or what services that you pay for, this is just included in my subscription.
Right.
But within this, people can decide what it is that they want to talk to me about. So if they need a grant writer, They can click this, and then they can pick a date and time that works best for them. So tomorrow my office hours are from 9 to 3. If they want to come at 1 o'clock, they'll pick me, any details, and then they book it. And this goes directly to me. And so again, you've got to find the best one that works for you. Like I said, Calendarly is one.
Right.
But you also have to look at your website to find out what calendar link connects with them. I'm sure Squarespace has their own. Every like hosting site has their own bookings, but you want to make sure that this connects to your website.
I went ahead just because I didn't want to miss any potential clients. Like even though my homepage says site under construction, I have on the contact page like a form template that I was able to build, include just kind of like the generic like questions or want to contact me, and then that automatically gets routed to my email.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it's definitely not as description oriented or customizable and specific as what this could do, and really get people to hone in on what they want to talk to you about, which is really could be really helpful.
Yeah, you've got to play with it to see what works. And I played with this for about 6 months to see what works. And now I figured out how to separate these two, because people were coming in at two angles, because I have two businesses. So people were coming in at two angles, and I only had one bookings. And now that we've separated, okay, so now we understand how to do such. But people come to you for totally different things, and you want to be able to give them just a launching pad in order for them to get to you for free. Or if there's a paid service, then that is for them as well.
Yeah, and that probably helps like get a lot of people to submit just seeing that 20-minute free conversation with you that might not otherwise just submit like a blank open-ended form. I'm assuming that language is definitely more inviting and helpful and direct than just like, hey, shoot me a question, so
Exactly. And so when they book something with me, the next thing is what happens is that in their confirmation and their booking, they get what you've already completed, which is the 20-minute coaching call. And this is in the 20 minutes, you've got to minimize what it is that you want to talk to them about. And so you can use Google Forms to help you screen the people that you're talking to. I gotta change this. Mm-hmm. All this time I hadn't changed this. So, and you're familiar with how to use Google Forms, correct?
I am, yeah. I've actually just used it in-house for a grant that we're working on for Habitat that's due this Friday. We're applying on behalf of our coalition, and I needed all this like crazy information from each partner. I think maybe because of your call, are you showing this to me a couple weeks ago? I was wait, there's an easier way to do this than getting like 500 different emails back. So it's been a lifesaver. It really has.
Awesome. And so you've just got to play with automation as you are figuring out your client. And that's how you're determining really your client avatar, to understand what is it that as you do this, you're going to understand and build the tools that your client needs, because your client is going to tell you exactly what they need, and you have the acumen to provide that solution to them. And the way to kind of reduce either your time or your stress in the project is figuring out what type of automation tools that keeps you off of the telephone and out of your emails. Mm-hmm. And so these type of things help you buy back your time. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. And it just, I don't know, I'm starting to see like how beneficial it would be for me to have just like a time, like almost like a checklist for myself. Like, and I guess this goes back to onboarding, but just this process again, because I'm on number 2, so really experience here. But
Yes.
the back and forth, and at like what steps and what critical, like you're saying, emails or forms or surveys or like consultations, you can get the key information, so it's not like a shock that they're not sharing their strategic plan, questionable, that they have with me.
Yes.
Yeah, this is really, really, really good stuff that I need to just build out.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things, like I said, like a lot of things that I shared with you that are low or no cost that you can play with the automation to see what works best for you. Give it at least 90 days to 6 months to see what's right for you before you kind of pull the trigger on some. And then you evaluate it every 6 months to see, does it work well for you? And if not, what is the best tool out there for you? Mm-hmm. And so what's going to happen in the next week and a half, because I'm offline next week. When I come back is going to be the priority. I'm definitely going to send you this video and the last video just so you can review it over the holiday. But you're going to receive a second email that's most comprehensive of number 1, the summary of everything that we kind of talked about, and transitioning all of the things that I downloaded today into the shared drive so you can start kind of digesting all of this. And then, like I said, additionally, you'll get the link to schedule your post conversation so we can go through any questions after you kind of started any of the processes to laser focus on your questions that you'll have for our hour together.
Awesome.
Sound great?
That sounds great, Randy.
All righty. I'm so proud of you. Yay!
Well, thank you. It's been the biggest blessing to like walk away with this from the conference. You have no idea. So thank you for making that available as a gift or whatever raffle item. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And it's my pleasure to be of service to you and share the good and the not so good in this field that is always most rewarding. And I'm always here as a resource, and you are always welcome to all of the trainings. I'll make sure that I'll include you in our mailing list. Just know I am in massive transition. And then with our recent grant on the Serve University side, we're waiting for the funding. We got awarded, so as you know, it takes some time for the funding to drop. And once it does, we're able to push out with a lot of the things that we are transitioning into the new site and the downloadables and all that other great stuff. So I can't wait to share that news with you as soon as possible and keep you in the loop.
That's awesome. That sounds great. And please do, I know you had mentioned this like either at the conference or at the very beginning of our time together in this course, but something about like a dinner or potluck or rendezvous, something like I would love to help. I don't forget when food's mentioned, obviously, but like if there's anything that I can help to in the back end or be a part of that, I would love to continue to be around people like yourself in this field. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you need some help or just anything. So
I appreciate that. I will definitely keep you in mind of such. Yes. Well, so thank you so much, and I appreciate you. And just give me a little time to get through. School I've so underestimated school these last 2 semesters, but I got the hang of school, and this is why I'm excited about our new automation, because it allowed me to have a healthy balance and not feel like that I'm not providing the best services. So if you could just give me just a little time, you'll definitely get the last 2 videos, and then you'll receive a comprehensive email with everything else to get you launched to your mentoring session.
Awesome. That sounds great. And have a fantastic time in Florida. Hopefully the rain will hold off for you guys. And yeah, we'll be in touch about the follow-up call. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Brandy. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks. Take care. Bye bye.